Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Mayo 115, Roscommon 13 points at Dr. Hyde Park. Mayo are into the Connacht Senior Football Final. A comfortable win, very comprehensive win in the end. Look, it was a 5-point game, but I thought Mayo were very, very comfortable. I'm not too sure if Roscommon ever led in the game. It was very, very comfortable from a Mayo perspective. And look, it wasn't the best game. I'll be honest, I was watching a lot of the Waterford Cork game and the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. There will also be a match reaction out for that just a little bit later on. So I was kind of watching both games, trying to juggle a bit of the Cavan Tyrone game, obviously, as well, which I just checked the score, by the way, before going live. And I was like, oh my goodness me, Cavan are actually in front there, which is absolutely bizarre. However, in saying that, Mayo, yeah, this was comfortable. This was fairly straightforward from a Mayo perspective. Very disappointed with Roscommon, in all honesty. Like, at home against your big rivals. I know the weather, very, very warm and everything else. Not easy for players, not conditions, obviously, that these lads would be used to playing in. But I think Roscommon had to show a little bit more, in my opinion. It was so lethargic. It was so passive, so predictable. Like, so many hand passes, no variation in their play. You're looking at Roscommon and you're thinking, like, kick it into your forwards. Just mix up your play a little bit. It was so easy to defend for Mayo. And then when Roscommon, more often than not, when they would get into attacking scenarios, they balloon the shot wide. And I think, in fairness, German Murtagh, Dara Craig, like 9 points each, or 5 points for Murtagh, 4 points for Dara Craig. So you can't really knock either one of them two. Ben O'Carroll was very involved in the game, in fairness, and made things happen. And he was kind of alone, really, up there at the best of times. But it was just so comfortable for Mayo. And I don't even think Mayo were at their brilliant best today, in all honesty. Like, first half, they were just very controlled. They had glimpses of good attack and play, but they never really overexerted themselves. And look, Mayo overall be very happy. They'd be very happy to come away with the victory. Very happy to come away from Dr. Hyde Park with the win, obviously, versus this Roscommon side. It will certainly stand to Mayo, no doubts about that. Ryan O'Donoghue, 7 points. He was very, very good. Very, very good from Mayo perspective. Tommy Conroy, obviously, with 2 points. Great to see him sort of back, looking more and more back to his best. It must be said, after a couple of long-term injuries and everything else. Aidan O'Shea, obviously, with 1-1. He was causing all sorts of havoc. Obviously, plays a huge part for the Mayo goal, in fairness. And yeah, look, it wasn't the best championship game, in comparison to watching Donegal, Derry yesterday, and obviously some of the hurling championship action that we've had. And maybe a little bit disappointed that I didn't watch the Cavan game, because it seems to be absolutely mental what's going on there by the looks of things. But yeah, look, Mayo, it's one of them games. It won't live long in the memory for Mayo. It won't live long in the memory for Roscommon. We both know that Mayo are probably thinking long term, but at the same time, I think Mayo will be very happy because, it's not like they blew Roscommon out of the water. You'd say Mayo still have a lot more to give. It didn't look like they overexerted a huge amount of energy. They never looked like losing the game. In all honesty, they just looked so in control. And like, there was times where this was a 3-point game, it was a 4-point game, and you're thinking, Mayo and both Roscommon were both playing this game like it was 10, 15 points. Like, Roscommon just looked absolutely defeated. And there was just no game plan. There was no hope, really, for them to turn it around. And a couple of moments towards the end, like lofting the ball in the square when there's nobody there. For once, they actually went and done that. And it was so comfortable for Mayo. And, like, unfortunately for Roscommon, under Davy Fitz, I'm thinking of Waterford, under Davy Burke, they just don't score enough. They don't score enough. They don't create enough. Their play is very predictable. They hold the ball for too long at large parts. And look, when you're in front, and when you're 2 or 3 points ahead, completely fine. Manage the game to the nth degree. Try and frustrate the opposition. There's absolutely no problem with doing that when you're in front. But when you're trailing by 3-4 points, you need to mix it up. You need a bit more variation in your play. And I just didn't see that from Roscommon. It was just far too predictable, in all honesty. But fair play to Mayo. Look, Fergal Boland was very good. 2 points from him. Connor Loftus came on and made a big impact, in fairness, 2 points as well. And yeah, Mayo march on into the Connacht final. I think Mayo will go in as favourites, given how poor Galway looked versus Sligo. From obviously, haven't seen any of that game just yet, because obviously it wasn't on TV. But you are looking at it and thinking Mayo should go in as slight favourites. Albeit, look, there hasn't been much between Mayo and Galway in recent seasons, and it still is quite a difficult one to predict. In fairness. Macy says here Mayo cruised past them. They absolutely did. And I think Mayo didn't even get out of third gear. In all honesty, that way, like, it was just very, very comfortable. And I think that would be the most frustrating thing from a Roscommon point of view, because I wouldn't say Mayo played poorly or anything like that, but they were never really tested. They were never really put on the back foot. Yes, Roscommon were only a point behind the half-time, but you never really felt like Roscommon had them on the ropes, and you felt like at times Mayo were maybe a little bit there for the taking. Like, to be fair, like, Mayo came flying out of the blocks, obviously, with that goal from Aidan O'Shea. Like, after 10 minutes, 12 minutes, they're 1-2 to a point up, and you're thinking this could be an absolute hammering, really, in favour of Mayo. And Roscommon done well to get themselves back into it after that point, but they just never really kicked on after that. And you felt like Mayo at times looked like they were a little bit vulnerable, and maybe Roscommon could capitalise on it, but it just wasn't the case in the end, in fairness. So, look, you have to credit Mayo. They got over the line. They got the job done. On to bigger things, obviously, from their perspective. Bit of revenge, obviously, from the defeat, obviously, in the championship last year in McHale Park. So they'll travel back to Mayo knowing they blew, they didn't blow Roscommon out of the water, but they obviously beat them quite comprehensively and comfortably. And yeah, for Roscommon, like, you're just looking at them, and aside from German Murta, Ben O'Carroll, maybe Dara Craig to a certain extent, they just don't have enough natural shooters, and they don't create enough. And they're just crying out for a bit more quality, really, in their attack. And they'll go into the group stages as a third place seed, but like, will they get beyond the preliminary round? Maybe, depending on how things go. But will they, if they get to a quarter final, like that? I suppose that probably is what their objective is, but I couldn't see them going anywhere beyond that, or even beyond the preliminary round. In all honesty, I think they do look very, very beatable. I reckon there'll be a couple of Division 2 sides who would probably fancy themselves against Roscommon as well, in all honesty. So yeah, just not really there from a Roscommon perspective. And look, for Mayo, in the past, we've seen maybe Mayo blow teams out of the water, have a huge amount of energy, play very, very good, attractive football, and then run out of steam. The more the year has gone on, that's obviously happened probably in the last 2 years, in particular last season. So, that will stand to Mayo at the same time, is that they certainly have a lot more to improve on. They certainly have a lot more to give. And look, they've got a Connacht final now to look forward to. Win that major piece of silverware, obviously, for 2024. First Connacht title for Kevin McStay as Mayo manager. So that would stand to him. But look, Galway will be there, and Galway will certainly improve after that very poor performance against Sligo. There's absolutely no doubts about that, in fairness. So yeah, look, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Cheers to anyone who tuned in. Let us know your opinions on the game. In terms of man of the match, probably go with Ryan O'Donoghue, 7 points overall. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, a lot of them were from frees, but even some of his points from play were outstanding. And I don't think you can look past Fergal Boland, Aidan O'Shea. Both had absolute cracking performances from a Mayo perspective, in fairness. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we will speak to y'all later.